Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, the weekly card review show for Collective, the community-created card game, where you make the cards. And I have a hairbrush this time. I'm joined today by my faithful co-host, Grief.
Howdy, folks. I don't have a hairbrush, as you can see at my, with my hair, which is all over the place.
Yeah, same kind of story. I should probably use mine a little bit better. And with his lovely, amazing hair, we have my co-host, Empty Folder.
Hello, everyone.
There we go. Okay, now we are joined, or let's jump straight into it. Starting with these cards are called accepted cards because they're in the game, so you can play with these cards if you want to. If you don't, just bear in mind someone else might. The Withering Curse is a 3-drop neutral curse from nowhere in particular with give target unit at the end of each turn get -3/-3. So, two big reasons I wanted to highlight this. First of all, 3-drop delayed removal in what I think is fairly interesting structure. And second of all, this is, as far as I know, Kaiton's first card, or one of the first. And so I just wanted to highlight that and say congratulations. Art-wise, I mean, this is a VQ-GAN art that I feel it's a decent VQ-GAN art, but I don't feel it like captures the essence of what needed to be captured very well. And so I think that part's kind of lackluster. The effect, though, I think is really, really neat, and I'm kind of interested in seeing how these curses are going to be executed because I know Kaiton had more plans for different ones of these. It does make me sad that it's kind of a little simplistic. Like, I almost wish it was a little bit cheaper and maybe had like a smaller buff, so it was actually like not just, oh, this is going to remove something a turn later most of the time. Well, at the end of the turn. It reminds me of one of my favorite cards in Magic, Stab Wound, which is it's like a thing of -2/-2, but it also hits your opponent, so it gives you like a extra sort of benefit there. But still, this is really, really neat, and I could see a lot of different decks running this, especially with being neutral. Grief, what do you think of this?
Yeah, this is actually just basically, as you said, neutral, delayed removal, demon. Therefore, you can basically fit it nearly everywhere. That's a mid-range / control-esque shell. Maybe even the odd aggro deck can benefit from it to get rid of either crackback or larger defenders. But I think for tempo plays, it's not really that good. So yeah, I think mid-range / control would probably be the best home for it. You can do some silly stuff in getting rid of units that have self-damage triggers, so you can kill them off without actually triggering those effects when they get damaged. So that's at least something. Aren't those two different art generating tools as Flickr, or what it's called?
So VQ-GAN is the tool doing it. S-Flickr is the images it's using.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually the combination is VQ-GAN plus S-Flickr. But yeah.
No idea.
I would have liked this a lot better with straight 2s across, and if for some reason this isn't seeing play, I'd like to suggest that as an update to anybody who feels in the mood. But I know I'm probably wrong on that. I'm not really that much of a numbers guy when it comes to collective. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Grief. There's not all that much to say about it. It's just like a solid sort of slow removal tool to shore up removal for decks that don't have that many good options. I know Kaiton is like going forward with this sort of a curse. Like, they're making a lot of these curses. It would be cool to see some maybe like a few units or something that have some tribal synergy, since they all do have the curse tribe. So we'll see how that shakes out. But for now, just good neutral removal.
Yeah, you got to be careful about these things, because then you get weird stuff like someone trying to print like door tribal, right?
Yeah, who would ever do that?
No. Okay, the Pup's Whistle is a 1-drop spirit curio from Hope's Hollow. Woo! With create 2 famished pups in hand. A famished pup is a 1-drop spirit 1/1 dog from Hope's Hollow with agile. And when you play a card, this gets +1 attack until end of turn. Yeah, so this is kind of what I was originally trying to do with the Animastra rodents before they got like all shut out. where it's like synergized with playing a bunch of cheap things. I really, really like this thing. I think it's really, really neat. And the famished pup is just adorable. Yes, he is. So obviously you get benefits. You could chain this into food, which, you know, Hope's Hollow was supposed to be a food thing, and I think this does kind of fit that. Or you can just use it. You could like chain them into each other with a bunch of like cheap like 1-drop stuff, and then Pup's Whistle, play a pup alone gets you a 2/1 and a 1/1 agile. But if you synergize this with some other stuff, you could probably play a lot more cards than that. And it's a curio, which I don't know. Hopefully we can do stuff with curio support. I like curios. Grief, what do you think of this?
Pretty decent aggro tool. Turn one, play the whistle. Turn two, you can probably drop both and get for 2 damage in, for 3 damage in, which is not the worst thing to do, especially with an already aggressive styled game plan. You can utilize them in food decks, which was the same thing or spiel with the beggar tokens. These in Legacy play well with beggars because you play the whistle turn 1, turn 2. You play the beggar card, the bell,
Ring the bell,
which creates a ring the bell, which creates the beggars. You can then go into another card, maybe food search card or whatever. Turn 3, play the famished pops, play the beggars, have a 5/5 attack, or even with a food card, even the buff for the defense. Those are just very high utility aggro pieces. So not a worst thing that can be brought around for standard and for legacy.
Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think in standard, for spirit, I think it's going to be kind of hard to really get those numbers to like impressive amounts. Spirit doesn't really have enough support for that sort of like combo play style. There's a little bit in food, but it's very inconsistent. Maybe if you're like running this in cam or something, because Mind has a lot of cards that can let you like chain and spam things over and over again to really get some impressive numbers.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, at that point you're probably dealing with two mana 1/1s.
Yeah.
Marshmallow Malice is a 1-drop neutral 2/1 sweet elemental from Zukros with summon, choose a candy to create. I love this. It's super simple, clean, and it's in the game. So one of the things that I feel Candy did not have enough represented was small cards. This is a 1-drop, and choice of candies, and this does that. Really, really great spot filler for candies and anyone wanting to try that out. Also very versatile in terms of just, I could see a lot of other decks running this, right? Because a spot of life bond, a little bit of regenerate, and an attack boost is something a lot of different decks could really use. And so for that, I think it's really, really cool. Empty, what do you think of this?
Oh yeah, this is an awesome card. For Candy, like this is just an incredible curve filler. Lets you create whatever candy you need when you need it, which is very important. And really just like fills what was a pretty big hole in that deck. And then the really nice thing about this is that like it can go in a bunch of other places as well. The main thing you're going to consider when wanting to run this is like if you're playing a mind deck and you really want to get like a little bit of life gain, like you're running a control mind list. Of course, mind just doesn't get life bond normally. And this gives you really easy access to it and you don't have to pay that much for it. So I think it immediately sees some play there.
Yeah. Also, this does a Fortuno proc all on its own, right? Fortuno needs 2 cards entering hand, right?
No, it's 3.
Oh, it's 3? Okay. Oh, man, because as a turn 1 Fortuno proc, that would have been cool.
No, you got to run. There is a card that lets you do that. It's the one from Zuriel that creates the 2 little orbs.
I see. Brief, what do you think of this?
It's simple, it's easy. You can probably put it into a Brick Take or any kind of action spam deck, and that's basically it. It's just a good utility tool that is for early aggro, for action spam, or whatever. It's neutral, so.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so those were accepted cards. Those are in the game. These are active cards. They're not in the game yet. Don't freak out, but they could be in the game depending on how they get voted. The Outcast Swineherd is a 5-drop neutral 2/2 Feowin from nowhere in particular. With Scour 4 and create a Belliard Swine for each card banished this way. The Belliard Swine is a 2-drop 4/2 neutral pig. So yeah, really fun use of this open source art. I'm trusting that Thrifty did their research on the thing. But also, I don't know, it feels very collective and just the degree of weirdness that it's got going on with it. Now the effect really interests me. I have a very weird relationship with like super top heavy cards. I think they're cool. Like that's why I did 3 Boars taped together. It was a collaboration with Grief and someone else. But yeah, I had a lot of hope for this card, but I think it's the kind of card that's really polarizing because people feel that it's too powerful or people feel that it's utterly awful with nowhere in between. Empty, what do you think of this one?
It's 28 stat points for 5 mana. Like it's just kind of blatantly over curve. And I think the reward for banishing cards of getting a 4/2 is so high that there's almost zero consideration for not doing it.
Yeah, no, Woojek came in and said that these are, well, originally these were 5/1s, and those were just really fairly easy to deal with. So if you were to recommend a change to this card, what would you recommend?
It's really hard. Honestly, I think having a different condition than Scouring, because it's basically a choose one card, and your choices are between like having deck filtering and getting a 4/2. And the problem is those aren't even close to equal. There's almost no time where you would actually take the deck filtering. So having something else versus getting stats where you might actually consider doing it, I think would make the card more interesting to play.
Grief, what do you think of this?
And basically for the tokens, there's no real competition. You just drop the 5-drop, get the tokens. The problem is there's a 5-drop 2/2 that technically doesn't do much for your deck plan altogether. If you draw into it and it sticks there in your hand, or even gets cost increase or whatever, just mice cards and whatever the shtick with them is. But with Jinx already being around the corner as a new card mechanic that people want to introduce, this is just even weirder. Because, okay, yeah, cool, I got Jinxed. Here, I get rid of my burn damage I probably receive and get a board full of Swine tokens that will hit your face in. Even if I wouldn't have played against a Jinx deck, that's probably what I would have done. As Empty said, there's no real way of choosing between either or, because you're building your deck around, oh yeah, I'm playing this thing and have 28 stats on board, 24 stats or whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is kind of that dichotomy I brought up where Empty thought it was too powerful and you thought it was
No, I'm not thinking it's too weak.
Oh,
it's as I said, the scour effect is irrelevant. You're just dropping it for 4 bodies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, basically you can say, oh yeah, banish the top 4 cards of your deck, get 4 4/2 tokens. The body itself is not really remarkable, but the thing is, unlike other cards in a similar fashion, don't really trade the body for the effect. Because at this point, you drop it, it has done its job. That's it. Normally, something like this would probably need to have an active where you banished and produce a swine and so on and so forth. At that point, 5 mana would be too slow, but it would be probably much more reasonable to have this kind of impact. Where you say, okay, you have to actually survive with this thing for a turn to get the benefits of it.
I see what you're saying. Or maybe, I mean, it could be like an end of turn type thing and then like scour less, maybe. I don't know.
Exactly, something like that.
I kind of liked it as is, and I would rather see like responses rise to meet this kind of thing, but I get what you guys are saying. Yeah, that's why it's sitting at 0. So I'd like to see it resub. Okie dokie then. Another thrifty fish and submission. Rapscallion Goons is a 3-drop Spirit 1/1 plant from Entera with Agile, Life Bond, and Summon. Create 2 copies of this. Simple, clean, cute. I like it. Little way to get lot things that synergize with, you know, obviously having 3 dudes, and then it's a Baluch proc. Baluch plants I thought was kind of interesting. But also just, you know, a little source of life gain, that kind of thing. Grief, what do you think of this?
I mean, just a book. Aggro plant card. We've seen a dime a dozen over the last few years. It's nothing really new.
Well, but non-native support.
Happy is also non-native support.
Mm.
It's a dime a dozen plant card.
Yeah, I don't know. I really did think it was kind of neat, right? I don't know.
It has life bond. It has life bond and agile. That's the new thing. That's probably the thing that you utilize it for in Bullock and Dart. Maybe even if you can find a way to utilize it for plant tribal deck and Hawkins, because yeah, you will just bully out aggro decks with it.
Yeah, so I'm running this, and then I'm running the guitar, and then I'm running Belfry of the Void, and then I'm just gonna gain a whole junk ton of life, right?
Or you can play a good deck.
Or I can play a good deck. MT, what do you think of this?
I mean, Bullock like really needs the support, honestly. I think part of the people's hesitation. How is this doing, by the way?
2. It's not doing well, which is why I wanted to
part of
talk
people's
about
hesitation is probably that plants are like one of the top decks right now.
Oh,
so they may not want to see more support for them.
But what is the plants deck? Is it in Baluch or is it in Dat?
It's in neither. It's in Hawkins.
Oh, it's in Hawkins. Oh yeah, and I guess Hawkins could probably use this pretty efficiently as well. So.
And actually Hawkins, it's so gross because we brought back Giddy Gardener, and it's absolutely disgusting when you play that on turn 1 and get 2 extra XP.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I don't know. I like it. It's cute. Luke needs it. Okay. The Wormhole Detour is a 6-drop mind event from nowhere in particular. We'll shuffle all the units into the deck, give them chain. So sort of a really quirky delayed board wipe, or immediate board wipe with a delayed things coming back. I really did like the concept. I thought it was kind of interesting. Oh, also, I just read the flavor text, and now I'm in love with this card. This card's sitting at 6, so it's actually doing fairly well. I just wanted to highlight it because it really made me smile. MT, what do you think of this?
It's a neat way to do like this sort of board clear effect. It's a little bit RNG heavy. And I really want to like it because it has a lot of cool elements for it. It's a really cool use of chain. I also think the wording is a little bit weird. It should be their owner's deck.
Especially since it still has space, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it has a lot of space. Yeah, I have mixed feelings on the card.
So, like, okay, let me maybe it's SP jank, but I mean, there's things like Door to Elsewhere that would let you fetch out the things you're doing, or just any sort of like shuffle draw.
I'm not running door decks. Those are your decks.
Well, no, so even without that, it's like, say you're running this in like Fortuna, which is his whole thing is like card advantage and trying to find ways to get a bunch of cards into his hand.
But controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grief, what do you think of this?
You play this in probably only one deck, and that's fish or some combo shenanigans shit for control decks.
Oh, it's good for fish. Yeah, that's a good thought.
Because the only reason why you run this is to work as a pseudo board wipe to lock out your opponent from the board and their hand. Meaning if you're running against some aggro deck that vomits their hand onto the board and then play this, they are basically out of the game. If they're not high rolling every turn, but still, if your deck is actually built around this kind of shenanigans, then you're okay, cool. I wipe the board. Next turn, okay, we both get a unit back because we're just lucky and good at the game. You get your 6/6 back and I'm my 1/1 because you're just good at the game. By the way, I have a reshuffle effect. I just shuffled 7 cards from my hand back into the deck, draws 7 new ones. Oh yeah, 6 of them were the cards that I just needed. This is like this is one of the weird high roll toxic board wipes you can do, because there are either good games where cool, this is a board wipe. There are one-sided games. Oh, cool, there's a board wipe for one player because the other one is just good at the game. And then there's, oh yeah, this is a lock plan that is utilized only to grief my opponent into oblivion and loop this ad nauseum because new units that get into a board are exhausted and I just loop this card.
Well, it's sitting at 6, so it's doing pretty well. I just wanted to make sure we took some time to like talk about it.
I just realized something. This is like really good into Second Sunrise because this is one of the only way to deal with the Pharaohs.
Oh yeah,
I mean, unless you get unlucky, I guess, and then they come right back.
Unless your opponent is good at the game.
Oh yeah, because this is one of the only zones that they can't really touch. So
yeah,
I don't know. There's some things to think about. Okie doke, Snatched by the Mist is a 2-drop mind mist, whatever, from nowhere in particular, with steal a base cost 1 unit. Steal is our normal steal effect, it just has a token now. I'm literally going to let you start on this one, Grief. I have nothing to say about it.
I just noticed that the mist is actually a hand.
It's the same, yeah, it's the same art, but he turned it sideways and then made it out of a different material.
I just noticed that. I'm so stupid. Whatever. It's a neat little pseudo removal. Base cost 1, yeah, okay, cool. Is half against aggro decks and maybe the occasional combo deck that utilizes base cost 1 units. Yeah, sure, if you're running against non-native, then maybe because of Mistfist base cost shenanigans, but that's it. This is cute. This is maybe a draft card. If we have side decks, that's probably for it, because if there's ever a meta deck that relies heavily on base cost 1 units, then you have this. But yeah, the caveat is sideboard. We don't have that. This is like, quote unquote, one of the worst ways to design these kinds of cards. I like silver bullets, but since we don't really have too many tutor-esque effects to fetch these kinds of cards in the right situation in a ladder format, we cannot really rely on this card being reasonably useful. Sure, there's currently the C with seek or store and fetch or whatever it's called. And I can see it's useful, being a useful utility silver bullet in that kind of scenario. Outside of that, it's cute.
MT, what do you think of this?
Yeah, it's just insanely restrictive. Like Grief said, like it's only really runnable as a sideboard card because it's gonna it's decent against aggro. If you're running against like pretty much anything else and this whiffs, you literally have a dead card in your hand. Whereas you could be running stuff like, I mean, mine has some really good stuff like Portal Snipe that can serve as an effective 1-drop remover and do a whole bunch of other stuff. I really wish it wasn't base cost and it was just cost 1. because then you could do some really interesting shenanigans with psychics and stuff. But as base cost 1, it's very restricted.
You know what's funny enough about this design is I think it's literally better without steal. I think the better way to do this would be banish a unit and create or banish a 1-cost unit and create a copy of it, because then you could actually use it for flickering your own dudes, and use it for non-native shenanigans, and use it to steal things. And I think that would be about enough uses to give it. I think it's steal is the problem here, which is pretty funny because it seems like steal is what this was like built around. Because using this as like a flicker or a turn a 1-cost unit into a non-native is something that the 1-cost deck might be able to use.
Honestly, I think you just need to open it up in like any way so that there's some reason to run it if you're against a deck where it would whiff.
Yeah, and yeah, anything where you know that it's going to give you some sort of benefit. And I personally, I think that was like, it would be better if this wasn't a steal card and just banished a unit and then made a copy of it. Sitting at 6, I don't know why. I don't know who's planning on running this card against what, but the Crimson Cracker is a 4-drop strength 4/2 robot vampire from Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things. With entrance, give all cards in both players' hands. When this leaves hand, this card deals 1 damage to this card's owner. So really, really just cute. I love this because you can like, oh, I'm running a bunch of life bond units. I'm gonna just play this and just do a bunch of pain triggers off myself. Or I'm running a bunch of just pain things. This is I like this. This is Cornmeal's. I'm gonna make a card that works in a bunch of different situations, but it actually is coherent. It's not trying to do too much, but it is trying to do a lot, and I think that's really, really cool and stylish. I don't know too much about ways to like reproc this, which would be cool. But in strength, but I think it's still really, really neat. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a card that serves like a very good purpose in pain decks. It's basically an alternative to Crimson Crook if that gets removed, to just get a ton of pain triggers really quick and try and burn out your opponent. And then maybe it'll see some play in some other deck, like there's some weird life bond deck that you were talking about, where you can just use this to really put a hamper on your opponent's hand and make them consider each card that they're playing.
Yeah, Grief, what do you think of this?
I'm just looking at it as a stacks piece because
yeah.
what do I want to do with it? I'm playing this card, I'm playing reshuffle effects maybe, I'm playing burn effects that just say, okay, whatever you do, get damage. That just fits right in there. I just want to check if the last time the Pox Demon card actually got in, if there was a spirit card or a strength card. I'm fearing it was a spirit card. The demon by Spike.
Wait. Oh, it's an entrance effect. I was thinking like the guitar, but yeah, there's not a lot of ways.
Well, you have to basically do some flicker shenanigans or reanimator to actually get through with this. I don't know if I cannot remember if Grave Rave is still legal in the standard.
Yeah, I know as far as I don't know formats, but Art or Rap would do it. Let you get proc this twice. Grave Rave is maybe is something to do it with.
Maybe Ragia Resurgent or Resurrection.
Yeah, some sort of red reanimator stuff would be
cool. With some kind of self-sec engine. But there's so much other stuff you can do. Let's just say the stack is slowly getting there. This is just another quirky tool for it. It's just at an extremely low vote count currently. I think at 2 or something like that.
Yeah, it's really low, and I don't know why. I love this card. Let's do this card. People probably just don't like the stacksy element of it. They're wrong. Corn, they're wrong. We believe in you.
People just don't like strength archetypes in general.
The Vorgnaut is a 1-drop spirit 1/1 alien with Entomb. Draw a card, shuffle a copy of this into both players' decks. So it's Lawlamp, but worse-ish in spirit. I don't know. It's interesting. I know Entropic wants to do these aliens. I know Entropic wants aliens in this game, and kind of nice if we could do that, but I don't really see what makes this sparkle at the moment. So maybe I'm missing something. Brief, what do you think of this?
Maybe we can do some Entomb shenanigans with it. I basically just put it up there because I needed another pick. Nothing against the community, but the subreddit this week was design-wise very boring.
Yeah. Wait. So this is at 0. I'm gonna convince you guys, the audience, not my panelists, to vote this up. Non-native.
Get out of here.
Because you're bogging down their deck with the thing they can't use, and then you're just going to use this to draw to draw some cards to make a bunch of copies of this.
You're bogging down their deck with a 1-mana thingamajig that maybe costs 2 because it's off affinity, which then, yeah, cool idea. Because Lawlamp is, I think, neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is slightly better than Lawlamp because it gives you a card.
Yeah. The thing is, like, this thing also draws a card, which is the only drawback for this upside for it being a better tax card. Promise, it's still slow as fuck.
Yeah. MT, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other problem with this card is that, like, it's not that much of a dead draw when your opponent gets it. Like, yeah, it's not great for that turn because they're playing a 1/1, but like when this dies, they get their card advantage back. You're not actually like taking cards away from them. You're just slowing them down by a little bit. And like, this is not really, I mean, this isn't a good like aggro card or something. So if you're trying to capitalize off slowing them down, you're already like kind of behind. I don't know. I just don't see it.
See, that's why I think like one more like Lord effect would be really like just having a Lord effect and like I'm gonna make these guys big would be cool.
Yeah, the thing is, like, you're giving a copy to your opponent, so any kind of benefit is also a benefit for them, so you cannot really make them better. You have to
Well, yeah, but if you had non-native synergy, then only your copy is non-native.
You don't give a shit about the non-native synergy. If at all, if you want to really care about synergy, then this card needs support card that puts more copies into your opponent's deck and increases the costs of them. Then at all, this would only be good if it's actually some kind of lock-down deck, because it's then better than the old Dralog shenanigans, where it's okay, Dralog draw cards or malware, but they replace themselves. Here you actually have to pay the tax for these cards.
Okay, now most of MT's picks, I'm going to warn you guys right now, are very, very low on the sub.
Like nearly all of them.
Yeah. Fuel the Fire is a 1-drop neutral action from nowhere in particular with innate, and if all units in your deck are robots, give them when drawn, Herald 1, and this doesn't stack. Cute, nice little abstract. I feel like there's probably better arts like on the art sheet, but maybe I'm wrong. Good for robots. I don't know what else to say about this. Empty.
So, okay, I mean, like part of the reason I pick cards like these that have no upvotes is so we can workshop them at least a little.
Which is good. Yeah, that's what the show's for.
The idea behind having like a weird quest where it's like run an all robot deck and get some like cool heralds. That's not the worst idea. The problem is it's just like too one note right now. It's encouraging you to run like a very one note deck, and the payoff is very slow, and for a deck that can't utilize it all that well. So I think just reworking this a little bit so that maybe opening it up to like be able to run like, I don't know, maybe a multi-try deck or something, or like have like some action support for this sort of mechanic would be good. So you're encouraged to make something like more interesting that has a more diverse play pattern, so you don't just get like shut down by removal and stuff.
One thing I feel that this kind of suffers from is like one of the big robot strats that's existed since for a long time is tokens.
Yeah,
Doing prototypes,
and
and it doesn't synergize with that at all. So like if this gave your robots everywhere, like was like a permanent hang over the deck kind of thing, that effect, that would have been cool. There's a lot that could have been done with this. I think MZ was a little too reticent on this thing when it could have been a lot more pushed, maybe. Because as far as I know, making your whole deck robots is a pretty significant drawback right now, right? Like, is there really I don't know. Grief, what do you think of this?
No idea. The thing is, like, for me, this doesn't really click well. This is like the reddest of red robot effects that I've ever seen. The only thing is it's not from Perotas. Yeah, I mean, Herald bots hasn't been a thing for like at least one rotation. So that's a few months back. Additionally, I cannot really see why you want to use this. Like, you cannot use it with prototypes. Yeah, sure, maybe if you do some reshuffle shenanigans with Fortuna bots, because that's kind of a thing. But you still don't really play them for the Herald. There's like a good idea not thought through to the end. Like, this is asking for a deck that is there, but it doesn't need that tool. And even if it would need such a tool, there's no way in hell where not every damn deck that is a robot deck plays a copy of this card. Because it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Because it's an absolute no-brainer. Oh yeah, I'm playing bots. Fuel the fire. I don't have anything against deck establishing cards. I kind of don't like quests that are. This is an auto-include with a tribal deck.
I mean, it's not really a quest. You don't have to. The quest is spend 1 mana.
And the thing is, like, this is not like Second Sunrise. Second Sunrise has a beneficial effect for you if you're playing Lazabos, because it turns them all into Spirit Undeads and triggers off of the damage of your Lazabos, but you can play it outside of a Lazabo deck as well. This is like, you're playing bots. Cool, get Herald. Wait, you're not playing bots? Why even include me into your deck?
Yeah. So I don't know. Needs some more sparkle. Needs to do more. The Misfortunate Strat is a 3-drop mind action from nowhere in particular with if played during combat. For each attacking ally, select a non-attacking enemy to act as its only blocker this turn. Otherwise, choose 2 cards in your opponent's deck to put on top of it. Trick. Now, there's one thing I really didn't like about that, and how Trick is like buried in the text, and it technically should be a separate ability, and that alone really frustrates me. Besides that, I love this card. This is like super interesting, and like the whole it having 2 very interesting, like, so like that second effect, the otherwise effect, choose 2 cards in your opponent's deck to put on top of it. Really awesome. Really cool strategies there, especially with like traps and other things that synergize with that. The first effect, like being able to force your opponents or being able to force blockers out of nowhere, really cool, really interesting. Absolutely love that. So my only gripes with this card are technical. The rest of it I really think is really neat. I'm excited we picked this card to talk about. Grief, what do you think of this?
I like it. I don't really have too much of a gripe with the trick wording. I mean, it's wording space. Sure, maybe you can cut something from the wording, but overall, Bonk posted a while ago the card text and asked if this would be fine, and I said yeah, because I didn't see the card template in front of me, so I didn't know that it was this crammed.
Mm.
Overall, it's just a cool effect. Multi-purpose, you can use it as a what's it called? I played that deck for so long and got on nerve of my opponents. Why do I not get the lantern control? This is just a cute little lantern control / mystic mine goddess deck where you just say, okay, either this is a good combat trick or my entire deck strategy results around me controlling what my opponent actually does. And putting two of their worst cards on the top of the deck that will never be actually useful to them, and with them not really having access to card draw and getting through them, perfect. I'm just playing them as a fiddle, do my own shtick. I just have to pay 3 mana to basically say, okay, my opponent does nothing for the next 2 turns.
Empty, what do you think of this?
I really like this. The first effect, having like a combat control effect in the game is just really cool. Like that's something we normally have. And it opens up like a lot of really interesting niche strategies where like you make a couple big overwhelm units and just run them into your opponent's 1/1s for lethal. And those especially with the trick, those sort of surprise tactics are really cool. And on the other side, having like this lantern control effect where you are like controlling what your opponent draws. That's another effect that we don't really have and could have some really cool uses in maybe like trap decks or just general control decks to stop your opponent from getting their bombs or answers. And like I like both parts of this card. I feel like the fact that they're combined is hurting the vote count though.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Which my only gripe with it's the technical gripe. I think even though they are 2 like unrelated effects, this is a very solid way to approach this sort of thing. It's an interesting use of trick in particular, just having it be 2 cards and having the mode selection be whether or not you played it as a trick card. And I love us exploring that kind of thing. But yeah, maybe just the not being related is kind of what's doing it. Oh God, you picked it to make me. Why'd you do this to me, Empty? I thought we were friends. Let me do some breathing exercises real quick. Ozos, the Eccentric Despot, is a 5-drop mind exclusive 3/4 psychic aberration from Vrognaut with overrun untargetable, and summon your opponent draws until they have 4 unmarked cards in hand. Ozos gets +1/+1 for each card drawn. Surmise and create a question in your opponent's hand. After the card you surmised is played, play Heaven's Iris. Perilous Question is a 1-drop neutral action with guess the cost of a card marked by Ozos. If you're wrong, Ozos gets +1/+1. Return this to your hand. Heaven's Iris is a 13-drop action from Vrognaut with put up to 2 units on top of your opponent's deck. Scour 10 for your opponent. Mark all cards you didn't banish. First of all, I think it's funny that the card colors on his little halo thingy are the magic colors. That makes me smile.
That was very intentional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, big thanks to Spikebird for doing the art for Ozos in the question.
Yeah, absolutely glorious art. This whole card just confuses the heck out of me. I don't understand the play patterns behind it. I want to love it. I might even upvote it just because it's a legendary for Vrognaut. Yay. MT, explain this card to me.
Okay, so it's basically an evolution of the way the surmise mechanic works. So the idea is you want to put your mark on a card depending on how many, you count the number of costs of the different cards in your opponent's hand. So like if they have 3 3-cost cards, you're basically locking off all the 3-cost cards in their hand if you put the mark on them. Because Heaven's Iris is like so powerful that your opponent is not going to want to play those regardless of what's happening. So the strategy is you're trying to use the question in a way where you're determining how many buffs you want versus how many cards you lock off. The play pattern is actually like incredible. It's really fun to play. And I wanted this sort of card where you like plant an invisible bomb and then your opponent has to find it. But yeah, like the text is a lot in order to make that happen.
Why would you ever play question? I'm confused.
Question helps you determine the location of the card marked by Ozos.
Oh, okay.
And if you play that card, your opponent gets Heaven's Iris for free, which is like massive. You don't want that to happen. So it's like a bomb finding minigame.
Okay. And yes, overrun and untar. Okay, so I understand it a lot better, although I don't think, I mean, well, it's, what is it? People seem to like this. This is doing it like 5?
It's doing all right. It's actually doing a lot better than when I initially posted. It was at 0.
Grief, what do you think of this?
I hate this card. Because it is basically a 5 mana. My opponent only has bad choices card. Because question is an utter nuts idea in a deck where, yeah, sure, you're playing this for a surmise card that has an absolutely stupendous level of a nuke attached to it. With a pretty harsh disproportional body as well. Because question is a card that doesn't make sense for the entire kit. Sure, you can kind of get the idea where your card is situated, but why would you actually run the risk of even buffing that stupendous dude, which has untargetable and overrun? Sure, your cards that are the rest of the cards in your hand can be the surmised card in question. But if you're playing against a surmise deck, you're trying to get rid of your marked cards as quickly as possible. So basically, making him drawing you 4 cards. Sure, that thing is now a 7/8, which is pretty problematic. But if you know that you're playing against a surmise deck with Ozos, why are you actually trying to hidden mark? Can this actually double hidden mark already surmised card? If so, if you have unmarked cards in hand or hyper draw into cards, then this draws fewer cards, isn't as big, but then you also run the risk that the rest of your cards in hand are already usable. In overall, this just makes the gameplay against this card very unfun, to the point where it's not a guessing game, it's just, let's try to kill you before I actually blow up with Heaven's Iris, because that's unavoidable. The card is designed to not really work against it. There is no real play against it. You will just run into a Heaven's Iris or die to other card effects that accompany it.
Yeah,
it's overall I drop this card and the game is over from here.
Yeah,
I think you're overestimating Heaven's Iris. Like, we had tested this quite a bit when we were playing this. The game like doesn't always end when Heaven's Iris goes off.
No, the game doesn't end when Heaven's Iris goes off. The game ends due to Ozos dropping on the board and controlling basically the gameplay from there. Because he's a pretty unreasonably good body that cannot be that you cannot really get rid of. That has a nuke attached to him as well. That's what I'm getting at. That also gives you a card you cannot really utilize without actually running the potential risk of buffing him. Because the only reward you get out of Perilous Question is, oh yeah, this is the card I cannot play.
Yeah.
Which is even worse when multiple cards have the same cost.
Yeah, I do think one thing I do agree with Grief on is the structure of question. It would maybe be cool if you can like separate your cards into 2 piles and then get told if the card was in that pile, or like specifically guess a card as opposed to guess a cost.
Guessing a card would make this way stronger. like the problem is with question now you can eliminate like 3 or 4 cards off one guess. If you're guessing individual cards, you're gonna have to play it over and over again.
Well, yeah, which is why the other suggestion I had was like, guess any number of cards if the marked card is one of them. So you can like divide your hand into piles, right?
That would be interesting for a redesign if it doesn't get in.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I think it would be nice if question gave you more of a benefit than just knowing where the button is. A little bit if you did guess right, because it doesn't feel like that big of a boon to people, and it just might make it a little less annoying to play against. Which I think, given that Heaven's Iris is already really spooky, that could potentially be cool. So yeah, my only real gripe now that I understand this card is it's complicated. Which having your opponent play against this is having to deal with that complication. And question is a little nah. But besides that, I think this is super interesting, and I'd be excited to see if this card gets in. I still do think it needs like an update to clean it up a little bit, but
it's tough. I think the I am like in love with the idea behind the card, and like the gameplay is really fun with all the analysis. Like honestly, the initial version was like even more complicated, if you can believe it. I spent a lot of time trying to trim it down as much as I could. But the most important part is that the effect, like it needs to be an interesting game to play each time. And that's why it has like that weird draw effect and why the question is a little bit iffy. I wanted to keep the gameplay as even as I could, given this type of card.
Yeah. Okie dokie then. So that was the end of the week. Really, really cool. Some I don't know. Grief was kind of harsh, but I feel like there were some cards that were fairly interesting, even if some of them were a little simple commons, utility commons, stuff like that. Thank you very much, Grief, for joining me.
You're welcome. Always nice to be here after a 2-week break.
Yeah,
it's good to do that.
Well, we'll be back. We're back, guys. We just had some stuff that happened. My sister got married. Stuff happened. And thank you, Empty, for joining us as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. Remind me why I keep doing this show, and keep playing collective. Keep on voting on cards. Bye.
See you.